Hello and welcome to yet another video, and in this video it is something very different than usual because in this video I'll be talking about this camera clip right here, well specifically about budget camera clips in general, because these ones you can find between 5 euros all the way to 20 euros depending on which time of the year, which brand it is. Now this particular one is from Andoer. Here in Europe it's around usually between 12 to around 18 euros depending on the region in Europe, and different tax applies to it of course. But of course I actually got this for around 7 euros in Thailand plus shipping cost, but they usually go for around between 4 or 5 euros in Thailand anyway. But anyway, in this video I'll be talking about this particular clips and also the budget series of these clips, and then just to kind of compare it with the Peak Design as well, because I mainly use Peak Design in actually all of the cases, but I've been using this one for also the past year or so. So yeah, I have something about this to share with you guys, and why in most cases it's also good to invest in this as well. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into the video. So the budget camera clips, this particular one is from Andoer, but I've seen so many other smaller brands that also produces the camera clips with the exact same designs, just different color options. So I'm assuming this is just from like a random big Chinese manufacturer or just factory that actually sells it like for no brand or just kind of no name, and then other companies can just put their brand on there or just kind of commission this factory or this manufacturer to just customize the color and then just slap their logo on there. So yeah, I'm assuming that's the case, because depending on how big the company is, Andoer is actually not that small, but it's also kind of not that big either. They have so many other camera rigs and also so many other lightings, microphones, things like that. So they're quite decent size, but yeah, they're a bit more expensive here in Europe at around 15 euros on average, whereas some other no-name or smaller companies that you sometimes hear about might be selling it for around 10 euros with the exact same design. So yeah, there is that. But anyway, for the past year or so, I've been using this kind of off and on. And before this video gets to the messy part, let me actually just structure this video into two different sections, which is very similar to all of my other My Thought videos on cameras. So I'll be talking about the operational side, the usability, then the build quality, and then leading into my conclusion about this particular camera clips in more detail, of course. So let's first start with the design, ergonomics, and the operational side of things. Well, this design is actually quite rugged, which is actually quite nice. It's quite simple, quite basic. Right when you actually see it, you know how to operate it, so that's actually pretty good. The only downside, well actually there are quite a few downsides, but the only main downside when you actually use this particular camera clips on your backpack strap or on the strap of many other types of backpacks or messenger bags, things like that, is that it doesn't really grip as well as the Peak Design. It seems a bit wider, but actually in the same time it doesn't take nearly as thick and as wide of a strap as the Peak Design can. And this is already the version 3 and it's so much smaller, but actually it is able to take thicker thicker straps, like back straps, things like that. So yeah, that is something that I'm really pleased about. On the other hand, it does what it's supposed to do, so like you can actually release it, but despite having that quick action, you still need two hands, whereas with the Peak Design, if you get used to it, you can actually just operate it with one hand. In my case, I just use my thumb to unlock and then pull the camera up. And because this material is not too grippy and it doesn't have a lot of friction, that means is that I can always slide the camera safely in and out really quickly. Whereas with the material of this particular clip, because it's a lot of friction and it's not very smooth, a lot of times when I put my camera inside, it's not a very smooth action, and a lot of times I also have to press this particular release button as well. So yeah, that's a really downside. And sometimes most of the time when it's not smooth, it does create this kind of insecure feeling of, okay, I might drop it while inserting the camera into the actual clip, or just releasing the camera out of the clip. So keep that in mind. And if you're using heavier cameras, I really don't recommend this, because not only that friction will cause it, to create that even more insecure feeling, but because of how edgy this design of this camera clip is, it does create a lot of burden on this part. It's not really weight of the camera per se, because that's the, putting on the strap, but it's more of like your shoulder area, or your this area of your body will actually feel the edges much stronger with heavier cameras. So if you're using something like, this OMD M10, it's totally okay. Yeah, that's a Peak Design plate right there. But if you're using something like the R5 with a 28 to 70mm f2, I highly don't recommend using this, simply because it will hurt after a while, and you might want to actually just switch to the straps or just handhold the camera at that point. Whereas with this, it is a little bit edgy, but in the same time, there are a lot of the curves that actually helps to minimize the pain, and actually you don't really feel as much of the curves or having the clip on your shoulder, especially when you're working for a long period of time. You really don't feel it at all, which is actually pretty good. Of course, Peak Design has a much longer time and probably more research budget into the design as well, because their first two designs weren't really good. And if you have bigger and heavier cameras like the R5 with the 28 to 70mm f2, it creates similar effects that this actually creates. So yeah, this is their third version, and it's actually a very refined and actually very good version. But I cannot really say the same with this design. So yeah, there's that. On another note, this is also not grippy when it comes to gripping on the strap. So if you actually open this up, there is barely any rubberized gaskets or like any rubberized area inside to actually grip onto the actual strap. So of course, naturally, with something like even the Peak Design, if you mount heavier cameras like the R5 on there, after a while it will actually start to drop down a little bit because weight, and of course if you're walking or running, it will just keep on shaking it down, gravity. Yeah, so with this it actually happens much more often as well. They try to make it grippy by having some prints on here, like this mold that helps to kind of lock into these holes as well, but to be honest, it's nowhere as effective as using the rubber that the Peak Design is using. So yeah, there is that. And now into the quality part of the build quality. Well, it is metal, it is really well built. If you're putting this camera clip onto the normal backpack strap, like very thin backpack strap, then it's okay, especially if you have it mounted with light cameras, then it does function. It is durable, but just remember that because everything is hard, and also the edges are very, very hard as well, it's just, yeah, it's not very comfortable to have on the strap. But otherwise, the build quality alone is very durable, especially for the price point. It is really durable, and I took it through a little bit of weather as well. You can see a little bit of the paints coming off from the usage, but of course, even after a year, I really didn't feel comfortable to use it all the time, and most of the time I ended up using this, so not enough paint came off compared to just looking at the Peak Design option. So yeah, there is that. But yeah, otherwise there are no rust so far, and also the rubber still, well, the rubber for the camera plates still actually holds up quite well even after a year. So I think it really depends on what you want to do with this particular camera clips, like how heavy of a workload you want to give it. And that actually leads right into the conclusion. So I would actually recommend this if you only need this purely as a light camera clip. So if you're only doing basic hiking, basic going out, and your camera is very light, let's say you're using like a 550D with an 18 to 55mm lens, the Micro Four Thirds camera like the EM10, EM5, EM1, things like that with a pancake lens or just one of the lighter lenses, those kind of things, then this camera clip will definitely do the job and you wouldn't feel too uncomfortable by it. But for example, if you're mounting like an R5 or even my Sony a7 IV that's filming me right now with the 20mm f1.8, then this can be a little bit uncomfortable having it, especially for a long period of time. And of course, if you don't care about mounting other accessories or having this fitting with a certain ecosystem, then this is also another great option to go for. But otherwise, if you're really invested into a certain ecosystem, like for example, I'm using the Peak Design tripod, I use Peak Design straps, I use Peak Design hand strap, things like that. So for me, naturally, it also makes sense to keep my Peak Design on. Not only that, it's so much more comfortable and I actually don't really feel it on me, even with bigger cameras. So yeah, it just makes a lot more sense. But yeah, if you're working with lighter gear and if you don't want to get into a certain ecosystem, then this is something that really is going to save a lot of money. And also it's something that if you lose it or break it, you won't really think too much about buying another one of this, because well, it is quite cheap depending on which site you buy it from, which time of the year, things like that, and which brand really, because the smaller brand you go, you're still getting pretty much the same quality because this is a mass-produced thing, apparently. So yeah, and you can really save a lot of money and buy several of these and put it on to all of your backpacks, like what I did with Peak Design. It's on my grocery bag, it's on my camera bags from small to large, it's on my side messenger bags. So yeah, it's very convenient. So if you're into that and if you use light gear, then you can really save a lot of money with this as well. Oh, and of course, using these, you can also clip it onto your belt, like the belt that you are wearing, you know, when you wear trousers, things like that, because these will grip on quite well. But if you do that, this is definitely a lot more uncomfortable because it will actually kind of, if this is the side of your leg, on the top where your hip is, kind of like the camera weight will just kind of be pressing down, and yeah, it will just hurt that part of your body a lot more as well, compared to this where it's actually quite nicely cut and it's gonna be very durable to the skin. So yeah, just keep that in mind. But yeah, otherwise that's just been a video about these camera clips. I just hope it helps a little bit, because on one hand, I understand that this is very expensive, the Peak Design, and I don't mean to always compare it to the Peak Design, but they're pretty much the main player despite being, you know, the most expensive, I think. But it's really quality, and you're definitely feeling much more comfortable using this, and it's definitely much more durable in the long run as well. But that's not to say that this is not a good camera clip. It's not perfect, but in the same time, if you know what you're doing, you can also just get the job done with this particular camera clips and save a lot of money. So yeah, there's that. I hope this really helps some of you guys, because to be honest, it's been really my essential piece of gear as well, because it allows me to really shoot much quicker in the field, whether professionally or just for personal work. It really saves me a lot of time, and I'm one of those people who just hate using straps because it just gets in the way. It's an easy way to, well, at least for me, to drop my cameras. So yeah, these are definitely great time efficient management tools for me out there in the field. So I hope this helps somewhat. But yeah, that's it for this video. I thank you all very much for watching. If you need a free photography guidebook, the link is down in the description section below. It's on my website. It's absolutely for free. Just click and download, and I will not bombard you with any newsletter nonsense. And of course, my photography course online is definitely coming up live, hopefully by the end of October, because I'm very close to finishing it. And if you have anything to share, any suggestions, any comments, any questions, feel free to also just write them down in the comment section below as well. Yeah, otherwise, I thank you all very much again for watching. Stay safe, have fun shooting. Till next time, bye for now.